Hello everyone, it is Caitlin and today we are making 1820 short stays. Alright, so welcome. I have managed to lose all the footage. Not all of it. I'm like 3 steps in. But we're going to go ahead and recap real quick so you kind of know what's going on. So basically, this pattern has been done by several YouTubers already. Dixie DIY has, there's someone else who's done it too, I don't remember who it was. But we're going to modify it quite a bit. So there's a lady who had a blog who got really good detailed measurements of the original, the original corset. It's from earlier than I wanted to do, late 1700s I think. And so I wanted to make it later, like 1820s would probably be the latest I could push it. Because you really don't see short corsets after that. And to preface this whole project, the idea of doing it came about as I don't do the 18 teens and 1820s, but I needed a short corset basically. So after hours, after events, after the public is gone, I like to get out of my corset because I've been in it for a really long time. And I can't relax in something that's very long and rigid as 1830 stays are, because they're very long. And so I needed something shorter. So I researched it. Really nothing came up in the 1830s, but did find some from the 18 teens and 1820s. So there was several patterns I could have gone with. I have the Laughing Moon pattern that would have worked. I have the Sense and Sensibility patterns has Regency underpinnings, which has a short stay pattern. I could have very well used that. I just opted to go for this one because ease of putting on, and so we're gonna do this. I think next time I do something, I'd probably do something with a front lacing, because originally I had a hard time finding originals that had the front lacing, but I've since found them, and I'm like, oh, that'd be easy. But I've already cut this out, so we're gonna do this. Basically, it's a corset wrap. There's a French term for it that's period, but it basically means corset for the lazy. But we're going to put quite a bit of boning and cording in this because if you see my other corset videos, I can't handle very little boning and little support. The corsets fall right off. It doesn't matter how they're designed or anything, and they have to be super supportive in the bust area. So we're going to do quite a bit more than I think some of the others have done because I have a larger bust than some of the other ladies who have done this project before. So this is the front piece. Now originally it came down, swooped about to here. I cut it off because I don't want a really long corset. This is supposed to be easier for me. I found an 1820s corset that looked similar, and so that's what I'm doing here. I am not doing the front lacing. I am going to do straight boning down the front, and I've opted to do 2 darts instead of 1 here. The pattern was super simple to kind of ease up. There's a line that kind of goes right here. You can't see it because I have tape there. I somehow misplaced my clear tape, and now I'm using duct tape at this point, so it's hard to see. But when you measure yourself, and the blog has directions for this, you measure from directly under your arm on one side to directly under your arm on the other side, right under your bust, and half of that measurement should be exactly this. So I eased it all up. This is technically a mock-up that I'm working on right now. If it works, yay! If it doesn't work, we'll do it again. I have lots of fabric. So I am using cotton sateen, mostly because I have a ton of it. Ton. I don't know why I have this much white cotton sateen. But there's like yards of it, and it's like 90 inches wide. So it's a good, strong corset material. I'm doing a double layer of it. So we're using cotton sateen today. We're probably going to use German plastic whalebone for all the boning, and cotton cord or sugar and cream yarn for the cording, which I think I'm only going to do cording in the gussets themselves, like I have done my previous 2 1830s corsets. And that's kind of the step I'm at now. So what I've done, I've cut the pieces out, cut the darts out, and I stitched up the side. And I think that's where I'm at. I put this on the fold instead of sewing a seam there, but I did sew a little line there so I can put the boning in, but I haven't done any boning channels yet. I just stitched here and did a line here to kind of keep all the pieces together. So I think what I want to do first before I start putting boning in is to go ahead and get the gussets in, and that's kind of where we're at this moment. So you haven't missed too much, mostly the cutting and then the sewing of this seam. Luckily, caught the fact that camera wasn't working before doing too much. So we're going to go ahead and cut to me sewing up the bust, sewing cording into the bust gussets. This is the last one, so I have 2 little gusset pieces, and I'm just sewing a little. I'm using entirely a running stitch for this project. I mean, the one side seam I did do a double running stitch, I did make it secure. Everything else is going to be regular running stitch because I want this done quickly. So there's that. And then we're going to put in the yarn. This is just cotton yarn. Stick it in there. Sew it up. The yarn back through as the cat pulls my yarn, because that's what she does. And I've just been jumping over, sewing that part. But that's basically the pattern I'm doing. It's just putting the yarn in and sewing a line. So I'm going to keep doing this until I get to the end, and at which point we'll just chop off all these little extra loopy bits, and then we can put it actually into the corset. And I'm doing no other cording other than this. This is it. Cording's a lot of work, and I'm not a particular fan of things that take a long time. So this is about all the cording I'm going to do. Everything else is going to be boned. There's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 2, 12 bones in the corset, which is actually a fair amount of bones for the 20s and 30s. Again, I just want to make sure that it's supportive. And that is including 2 bones that would normally be a busk. Alright, finished piece. Cutting off all the loops. Try not to cut my stitching, just cutting the loops. And then we have the corset, which has 3 of them already put in. I remember to make sure this goes the right direction. It should be going up this way, kind of swoopy this way. The other one swoops the other side. Oops. Not the most efficient way of sewing gussets, but this is what we're doing. So I'm doing a running stitch through the front part and going back and whipping the back just to make sure that I got all the back bits. Because sometimes I don't line them up exactly. And ideally I'd be doing a little bit smaller of a stitch, but it's hard through all the thick layers. This right here is the most difficult part. Once we get through the gussets, it's smooth sailing. All it is boning and binding. I don't even have to do grommets and laces. Okay, I had to do 4 grommets because I have to, there's grommets here and at the shoulder seams, or straps, shoulder straps. But that's only 4 of them. I might use the bone ones, because I have a few extra of those, and that way I really could use this for like teens and 20s stuff if I wanted, because the metals wouldn't have been around yet, at least in the early 20s. And yeah, going back and whipping the back just to make sure it got caught. But so far, as far as time has gone, this really hasn't been taking a long time. I mean, you think hand sewing, of course it would, but and I've been sitting down straight on sewing for 3 hours, and I've gotten over half the boning channels done, and all the darts, or all the gussets at this point. Actually, it hasn't been quite 3 hours. It's been 2 hours and 45 minutes, somewhere in there. Go ahead and try putting some of the boning on this side. We're using German plastic whalebones, which is what I usually use for corsetry. I'm actually using some that's left over from another corset project that I no longer fit in, so I've already taken the busk out and used it in another corset, and now we're taking the boning and using it in this one. Reusing. I gotta remember what pieces go where. So there's going to be a boning piece go diagonally, so here's the underarm seam, and it goes kind of diagonal this way. I'm trying to mimic the boning that I have in my normal 1830s corsets because I know that supports me. And then a boning piece here, but instead of stopping here, I went all the way down, and it's eliminating a piece of boning that would have gone, no, this way, would have gone this way. I just didn't feel like I needed another piece because this is a much smaller corset than I'm used to working, so I just lengthened this one, and we're going to hope that works. And I have two boning channels down the center front that's going to replace the busk. And we're going to try those being the German plastic whalebone. If I have to, I do have steel bones I can use. But I really don't want this to be super restrictive, so I think the German plastic whalebone should be fine. Alright, so we are working on the binding, but I have 2 more pieces of boning to put in I forgot about. So we're going to stick these right in the middle. Just pinning it right now, so it's not actually, these end up being a little bit long. We'll have to cut them down in a second. And I am putting ties in the center, so I didn't cut this hole. I used a knitting needle to kind of poke through the binding, and then I put the tie in there, and I'm going to stitch that tie in very well. It's just going to be stitched inside here. So the nice long tie to tie this thing in the front. And I debated whether doing 2 ties or 1 ties. I think I'm at 1 right now, and I don't know whether that's going to be enough. I may end up taking this part out and doing 3 of them. I don't know. We're going to figure that out as we get to it. Alright, so let's go ahead and put in the eyelets. We're doing the bone eyelets because I don't want to do them by hand, and this is 1820s, so the metal one hasn't come out yet. So how I've been doing this is just putting a little awl in there, and then I use knitting needles because I don't have a big enough awl. Use a small one, and then a medium one, and then the great big giant one. This one takes a second. There we go. Move this around. The goal, of course, is not to cut the fibers, just to move them around. And then we can just pop this thing in. Alright, and now I'm going to use the same stuff that I used here as the ties, but I'm not going to put this in until I put it on because I don't know how far apart to tie them until I actually try it on. So we'll go ahead and try this on, and we can put ties in. Alright, so I've tried this on, and the only issue I'm seeing is that the center front, that boning is not enough to keep it in place. So it's just kind of pulling out because this boning is flexible, and I don't necessarily need something flexible here. So although the original did use boning here, I'm going to put in a busk, which just means I need to take out a little bit, maybe. going to take these two pieces of boning out. Here comes the kitten. And I'm going to take out all the stitching as well, because the boning is slightly smaller than the busk. So I'm going to need to do another row of stitching, maybe 1/8 of an inch on either side. So I'm going to go do that, and then we shall have a completed little corset here. Alright, here we are, and our short stays. So yes, this is the inside. I did adjust the straps already when I tried it on and realized that the front busk wasn't going to work. Alright, there we go. So put this up here. There we go. So our little short stays that are actually very comfortable. And I can like sit down in them because they only go to right here, which is really nice. My back does feel supported, which is very surprising considering there's no boning in the back. I'm going to show y'all. Yeah, no boning in the back, but I actually do feel supported. I think it's just the way the corset comes down and goes around that's kind of hugging everything tight. But yeah, I mean, it's a pair of short stays, and I mean, I don't do the 18 teens and 1820s, but this will work for after hours 1830 stuff, which is again what I need it for. And so I have a corset, but I can still relax in it. So that is actually quite nice. Yeah, so it does seem like it's supporting everything, that all the cording, everything we did in the bust is going to work. It's holding everything up. The busk isn't as, I guess, restricting as I expected it to be. I think because it's so short. Again, like only goes, it didn't go down my belly button. Like it's a short corset. Like here's my natural waist, and the corset is about 1 inch above that. So it isn't restrictive at all, and I can still like sit down in this, and I would feel very comfortable in this for after hours stuff. But it's still a historically accurate corset, just a little earlier than what I would probably use it for, which is why it's not quite as accurate. But for after hours stuff, when some people are in jeans and a t-shirt, not everyone, most people don't do that, but there's a few that do. I don't feel as bad. So, and at least I'm wearing something, you know? Yeah. I am glad I ended up doing 2 ties. I feel like it's a little bit more secure than doing the 1 tie. And these straps probably could have been 1.5 inches longer on either side, but this gives some wiggle room too. So I'm perfectly happy with how this turned out. It is absolutely adorable. It functions very well for what it's supposed to function, and it's very comfortable. So I'm very glad that I did this. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to do the tie thing or the front lacing. This is really easy to get on, which I think is probably why it was called Corset for the Lazy. But I mean, either way, it works. So I'm happy with it. It works really well. It's what I wanted, and it does what it's supposed to. So that is a very successful project, in my opinion. So there's our short stays. Thank you so much for joining me today as we made our short stays. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you back here on Monday.